Thank you all for joining us on the Oncobuddy Podcast by 4Base Care. Today, we'll delve into a delicate yet crucial aspect for caregivers: how to have the talk about a cancer diagnosis with a loved one. Joining me again is Jaitri, our esteemed senior Psycho-Oncologist here at 4Base Care. Welcome back, Jaitri.
Thank you for having me, Gayatri. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Passing it on to you, Jaitri. Can you touch upon the previous episode?
Sure, as we discussed earlier, a cancer diagnosis is not just an individual battle, it significantly impacts loved ones who step up as caregivers. Imagine yourself in their shoes, having received this news about your spouse, parent, or child. We come to the question of how can one approach this difficult conversation. Being entrusted with sharing a cancer diagnosis with a loved one is a tremendous responsibility. It's natural to feel overwhelmed and unsure of how to proceed. The first step is acknowledging the weight of this conversation. It's not going to be easy, but open and honest communication is essential for navigating this journey together.
That's a great starting point, Jaitri. But sometimes caregivers might hesitate to share the diagnosis right away. So, can you elaborate on why someone might withhold this information and what are the potential consequences?
Absolutely, Gayatri. There can be several reasons why someone might delay sharing a diagnosis, often stemming from good intentions. They might fear overwhelming the patient, especially if they are already frail or dealing with other health concerns.
Right, a fear of causing more burden.
Exactly. They might say things like, they would not be able to handle it, or let's wait until they get stronger.
That's a very important point. So, can you give me another example to start with the conversation?
Sure, let's put this into practice. Imagine Priya, a daughter, just received a call from the doctor about her mother's biopsy results, breast cancer. Priya is very sad and needs to tell her mother Nivedita. How can Priya talk to her mom effectively? Here's what she can do. Choose the right time and place. Priya should find a quiet and private place where they won't be disturbed. This will allow them to talk openly and express their emotions. Start with empathy and love. Priya can begin by showing her love and concern for Nivedita. For example, she can say, Mom, I have some difficult news and I want you to know that I am here for you no matter what. Be direct and honest. After expressing her love and support, Priya should tell her mom the truth about the doctor's results. She can say, the doctor called with your biopsy results and they found breast cancer. Allow space for emotions. It's important for Priya to understand that this news is overwhelming and let her mom express her emotions freely. It's normal for her mother to cry, feel angry, or even deny the diagnosis. After acknowledging her mom's emotions, Priya can give her hope by mentioning that there are effective treatments available. She can say, we will talk to your doctor about the next steps and I will be there for you every step of the way. Prepare for resistance. Nivedita might be angry or resistant to the diagnosis. Priya should be patient and understanding and give her mother time to process the news.
That's a great breakdown, Jaitri. Well, we can say that clear communication, empathy, and offering support are very important.
Remember, Priya can also seek help from Nivedita's doctor or a therapist if she needs guidance in handling the conversation and dealing with her own emotions.
We have seen a few examples that will be helpful to the caregivers. So, when is the right time to open up about a cancer diagnosis?
There is no one-size-fits-all answer. Previously, in the example about Priya, the caregiver was prepared. It may not be the same for others. It depends on the individual's physical and emotional strength, their age, and their relationship with the diagnosis. There is a helpful model healthcare professionals often use when delivering bad news called the SPIKES protocol. SPIKES is an acronym that stands for several key steps that can guide caregivers in having a productive and compassionate conversation.
That sounds interesting. Can you elaborate on each of the steps?
Certainly, the SPIKES protocol involves 6 key steps, which includes setting, perception, invitation, knowledge, emotions, strategy, and summary. The first step involves setting. It talks about ensuring privacy, involving significant others, and sitting down to make the patient comfortable. Then, perception. Assess the patient's understanding of their medical situation. Third step is invitation. Ask the patient how much information they wish to receive. For example, would you like me to give you all the details about your diagnosis and treatment options? Moving on to the fourth step, which is knowledge. Share the information in a straightforward but compassionate manner. Avoid medical jargons and be clear about the diagnosis and prognosis. Fifth step is emotions. Address the patient's emotions with empathetic responses. For instance, I can see this news is very upsetting for you. Final one is the strategy and summary. Provide a clear plan for the next steps and summarize the discussion. Offer written information if necessary and schedule a follow-up meeting to answer any further questions.
Those steps seem very practical and considerate. It's good to have such a framework to guide these tough conversations.
The Spikes model can empower caregivers to have these difficult conversations with compassion and understanding. It's important to tell the patients whether it is a diagnosis or treatment they are going through at the right time, whenever the patient is ready to hear and the caregiver is prepared. Also, research has found that 12% of the patients with cancer were not informed of their diagnosis, which led to a 22% decrease in their likelihood of receiving treatment and a poorer prognosis.
Now, that's a lot to process, and it's important to tell the patients about the treatment they are going through.
Yes, it is. However, a conversation with the patient's doctor and psychologist can help caregivers navigate these decisions. Your oncologist and psychologist can assess the patient's ability to understand the diagnosis and offer guidance on how to communicate it effectively.
And what happens if the patient is resistant to the diagnosis or in denial?
It's important to be patient and understanding. Denial is a natural coping mechanism. You can offer them resources and support groups to help them process the information. Let them know you are there for them every step of the way.
So, the key, as you said, is open and honest communication. But how can caregivers approach this conversation? That is, how can they effectively approach this conversation? And are there any strategies available?
Absolutely, Gayatri. In fact, a book I found incredibly insightful is Silent Messages, Implicit Communication of Emotions and Attitudes by Albert Mehrabin, published in 1972. This book delves deep into the power of nonverbal cues. It truly opened my eyes to how much we communicate beyond words.
Silent Messages sounds like a fantastic read.
It truly is. Understanding nonverbal communication is especially crucial when delivering difficult news like a cancer diagnosis. The book's insight perfectly complement the ABCDE model. These are: A for advanced preparation. Prepare for the conversation. Timing is the key. Choose a calm and quiet moment when you won't be rushed or interrupted. Gather information. Equip yourself with basic details about the diagnosis, treatment plan, and prognosis. This knowledge will help answer their initial questions. You can discuss what information you want to share beforehand with the patient's doctor. Prepare for emotions. Understand that your loved one may react in various ways: shock, anger, sadness, or denial. Be patient and allow them to express their emotions freely. B for breaking bad news. Be direct and honest. Avoid sugarcoating the truth. Deliver the news with compassion but without minimizing the seriousness of the situation. Focus on hope. While acknowledging the challenges, emphasize that there is hope with early detection and treatment. Share success stories or resources that can provide encouragement. C for coping and support. Offer support. Reassure them. Let them know you will be there for them every step of the way. Let them know you are a team and you will face the challenge together. Create a safe space. Choose a comfortable and familiar environment where your loved one feels safe to express themselves openly.
Jaitri, those are very helpful tips for the caregivers. And the people listening to us might be going through a tough time themselves. Is there anything else they should remember?
Certainly, here are some more ideas. D for decision making. Don't hesitate to ask for help. Seek advice. It's important to reach out to a counselor or therapist or psychologist for advice. They can provide you with tools and techniques to help you communicate effectively and handle difficult conversations. E for emotional support. Take care of yourself. Prioritize self-care. Remember to prioritize your own well-being. You can't help others if you are not taking care of yourself first. Make sure to practice self-care so you can be there for your loved one. E for education and empowerment. Join support groups. Connect with others. Support groups can be a great source of comfort for both the person going through a tough time and their caregivers. Connecting with others who are in a similar situation can provide valuable support and understanding.
There is so much process involved in this information that you have given, Jaitri.
Gayatri, it's important to remember that caregivers are often dealing with their own emotional turmoil in addition to supporting their loved one. They might feel overwhelmed by the situation and unsure of how to proceed.
Now, with these theories in mind, let's revisit the strategies you mentioned, that is, for breaking the news. Can you elaborate on how they should address these concerns?
Yes, definitely. The strategies we talked about can help caregivers deal with these challenges in the following ways. Prepare for the conversation. By getting information ahead of time and thinking about how the patient might feel, caregivers can be ready to talk about their worries and offer help. Create a safe space. Picking a place that the patient knows and feels comfortable in can help them feel less nervous and make it easier to talk openly. Be direct and honest. It's important to be truthful, but caregivers can also be kind and not try to hide the truth. Focus on hope. Sharing stories of success or information about treatments can give hope and help the patient feel better. Be present. Listening carefully and looking at the patient show that caregivers care and support them through their feelings.
So it acknowledges both the caregiver's anxieties and the patient's emotional well being.
Yes, Gayatri, it's important to remember that the ultimate aim is to have a conversation that is open and honest, which helps build trust and makes the patient feel supported during their cancer journey. We should also keep in mind the timing of these conversations.
That's an interesting point. So, when would you say is the ideal time to have this conversation?
It's important to choose a moment when your loved one is well rested and hasn't been dealing with a lot of stress. Perhaps after they have had a full meal and some time to relax. There is a fascinating theory in psychology that can help us understand why this timing is important. It's called attention restoration theory.
Attention restoration theory. I haven't heard of that. Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. This theory, developed by Stephen Kaplan in 1995, suggests our ability to focus and process information is like a battery that depletes like mental exertion. Imagine your brain is like a muscle. The more you use it throughout the day, the more tired it gets.
So, if our loved one is already stressed, they might not have the mental energy to handle this news.
Precisely, Gayatri. Attention restoration theory suggests that activities like spending time in nature or simply relaxing can recharge our mental batteries. By choosing a time when your loved one is well rested, perhaps after a meal and some quiet time, they will have a greater capacity to absorb and process this complex information.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, picking up calm and relaxed moments can improve their ability to understand and cope with the news. We can think of it like this: if your phone battery is low, it won't function properly. Choosing a time when your loved one's mental battery is charged allows for a most productive conversation.
So, avoiding situations where they might be feeling hungry or overwhelmed, right?
Absolutely. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the way you approach this conversation can also vary depending on the relationship between the caregiver and the patient.
Can you elaborate on that?
Certainly. For instance, if you are breaking the news to a spouse, you might emphasize the idea of facing this challenge together as a team.
Like sharing the burden and offering support is what you're talking about.
Exactly. On the other hand, if you are talking to a child, you will need to use age appropriate language and explanations.
Now, let's say a parent has a serious illness and they need to tell their child about it. So, what are some key considerations when approaching this conversation?
Absolutely. First and foremost, creating a safe and supportive environment is crucial. This means finding a quiet private space where the child can feel comfortable expressing their emotions.
That makes sense.
Exactly, but there's another layer to this, something called family systems theory. Have you heard of it?
No, I'm not familiar with that term. What is it exactly?
It's a fascinating concept that suggests family function as a unit. When something impacts one member, it affects the entire system.
Interesting. So, how does that apply to breaking the bad news?
By involving the child in the conversation, we acknowledge their role within the family. It fosters a sense of shared experience and allows everyone to start coping together. It's not about burdening them, but including them in the support network.
I see.
Precisely. This approach builds trust and strengthens the family unit during a difficult time.
That's a powerful perspective. And we were discussing family systems theory and its role in communicating difficult news within a family. Jaitri, so are there any other psychological theories that can be helpful in this situation?
Certainly, attachment theory emphasizes the importance of secure emotional bonds. By providing consistent love and support, the parent can help the child feel safe and secure, even amidst uncertainty. Remember, the child's age plays a big role too. Younger child might need simpler explanations and more concrete reassurances, while older children might have more complex questions and emotions.
So the parent's emotional presence is just as important as the information itself.
Absolutely. We can also consider grief and coping theories. Kubler-Ross stage of grief like denial, anger and acceptance can provide a framework for understanding the child's emotional journey. We have already discussed this theory previously in our podcast episode. When people undergo a range of emotions when faced with a cancer diagnosis.
That's a great explanation. So, can you tell me how exactly to tell a child? Like an example?
Sure. Let's imagine a single mom, Divya, has been diagnosed with lung cancer. She has a 10 years old son, Thomas.
Okay.
Divya understands that keeping Thomas in the dark disrupts the family dynamic, so she picks a quiet evening when they can talk openly. She might start by saying, Thomas, there's something important I need to tell you. You know how sometimes grown up get sick?
Mm-hmm.
She can then explain in age appropriate terms that she has cancer. The doctors found some abnormal cells in my body and they call it cancer. It means we will need to go to the hospital for special treatments to get rid of those cells.
I like how she acknowledges the doctors and the plan.
Yes, it shows they are working on a solution together. Family systems theory reminds us to be honest but also age appropriate. Thomas might ask if he will lose his mom. Here, Divya can reassure him by saying the doctors are going to do everything they can to help me get better. They will have a team of people supporting me, and you will be a big part of that team too. She can also explain that some things might change, like having to visit the hospital more often, but she can assure him that she will still be there for him and they will figure things out together as a family.
That's a powerful message of unity.
Family systems theory encourages open communication. Divya can encourage Thomas to ask questions and express his feelings. She can validate his emotions, whether it's fear, sadness, or anger.
It's about creating a safe space for him to process everything.
Exactly. Remember, this is just the first conversation. Family systems theory reminds us that this news will impact the entire family. Divya might need to involve other family members or consider support groups for herself and Thomas.
That's a good point. It's team effort within the family system.
Absolutely. By following these principles, Divya can approach this difficult conversation in a way that strengthens the family unit and helps them navigate these challenges together.
That's a very important point, Jaitri. But what if the situation is reversed? What if the caregiver is hiding the diagnosis and the patient's health is deteriorating?
This is a very complex and concerning situation, Gayatri. I remember one research that looked into how not being told about their cancer diagnosis affected the overall quality of life of the women with gynecological cancer. They discovered that patients who were kept in dark about the diagnosis were less likely to get treatment and had a worse outlook. So, withholding a cancer diagnosis can have serious consequences. The patient might not be able to participate fully in treatment decisions and it can erode trust within the relationship.
So they are missing out on crucial information and possibly better treatment options as well.
We can say that if the caregiver suspects the patient might have cancer based on worsening health, it's vital to have an open talk, even if it's difficult.
So it's about approaching it with empathy and offering support throughout.
Absolutely, Gayatri. Remember, early detection and treatment are crucial in cancer. Withholding information can put the patient's health at greater risk.
Jaitri, that was very informative. Thank you for sharing your expertise with our listeners.
You are welcome, Gayatri. As we navigate these challenging conversations, remember this proverb. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Talking openly and honestly with your loved one is the first step on this journey. There will be challenges, but there is also hope and support available. Don't hesitate to reach out to healthcare professionals or your psychologist or a support group like Oncobuddy. For more information and resources for caregivers and patients, please subscribe to the Oncobuddy Podcast. You will find a wealth of informative content and a supportive community to help you navigate this journey. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jaitri, for such an enlightening discussion. And to our listeners, remember, even in the toughest of times, you're not alone. Reach out, talk, and seek support. Until next time, stay strong and take care. Together we beat cancer.